How to be an inspiring parent, last rule, Rule 13. And I'm going to begin with a very interesting disagreement between the Talmud Bavli and the Talmud Yerushalmi, the Babylonian Talmud, and the Jerusalem Talmud in Masechet Kiddushin. They are both discussing the idea of education and children, and I don't know if any of you are yet grandparents watching this. If you aren't, let me tell you as a grandparent, the best is yet to come. You will have grandchildren and you will say, I never knew life got that good. This is the biggest nachas in the universe. So the Gemara is actually discussing relationship, education between grandparents and grandchildren. And listen to what the Talmud Bavli says. Omar Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, lived in Lud in the 3rd century. Kol hamalamed et ben benot Torah ma'aleh alav hakatuv kilu kibla mehar Sinai. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says, anyone who has the privilege of teaching Torah to his grandchildren is as if he or she received the Torah personally from Mount Sinai. And as a result, the rabbis were always very, very careful to take their grandchildren to school, to have them to go over the parsha with them and so on. That's the Babylonian Talmud. The Jerusalem Talmud records a different tradition in the name of the same rabbi, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. And the Gemara tells a story about a rabbi who, Friday afternoon, he'd gone to the public bath, and there's a rule on Friday afternoon, if there's still time for Shabbos, if you've begun, if you've already started the bath, you don't have to interrupt. And there's a rabbi who's sitting in the bathroom, and he suddenly remembers something, and he gets up and puts his clothes off, and is about to rush off, and his fellow rabbi says, but there's a Mishnah rule saying that if you've begun, you don't have to interrupt. And he said, but I haven't yet heard Torah from my grandchild. He says, is that a small thing? Amalei, Chia bani, Chia, my friend, dear beloved Reb Chia, Kala hi be'enecha. Is it a small thing in your eyes? Shekol mishu shomea parsha me ben beno ki ilu hu shomaa me'ar Sinai. Anyone who learns Torah from his grandchild is as if he received it at Sinai. The Babylonian Talmud says the greatest pleasure in life is to teach Torah to your grandchildren. The Jerusalem Talmud begs to differ. It says no. The greatest pleasure in life is have your grandchildren teach Torah to you. And now I come back to the point with which I began. And it's the thing that had the deepest influence on my life. I mentioned to you earlier on in Rule 2 that my late father of blessed memory had to leave school at the age of 14 and as a result never had a full formal Jewish or secular education. And this always hurt him a lot. And I remember from my childhood that we'd be coming back from school, from shul on a Shabbos morning. I was 5 years old. And I would say, Dad, why did we do this? Why did we do that? And my father always gave me the same answer. And that was the answer that changed my life. He said, Jonathan, I didn't have a Jewish education, so I can't answer your questions. But one day, you will have the education that I didn't have. And when that happens, you will teach me the answers to those questions. Guys, I don't know if you want your kids to grow up to be chief rabbis, but if you do, that's how it's done. The greatest gift you can give a child or a grandchild is not what you teach them, but what you empower and allow them to teach you. There's a tiny little halacha in Hilchos Matnot Aniyim, in the Jewish laws of charity. The Rambam brings it. And it's a weird halacha, and it says, Afilu ani hamitparnes min tzedakah chayav liten tzedakah. Even if somebody's so poor that they only live on the basis of charity, they have to give charity. Why so? It's crazy law. But the answer is because charity is not only material, it's also psychological. The greatest gift is the ability to give. And if somebody's so totally dependent on charity that they're always receiving and never giving, they are being denied a basic human dignity. And that applies to our children. Guys, we as parents, we give them everything. There's one thing we sometimes forget to give them, which is the chance for them to give something to us. And that, frankly, is the most important thing there is. I began by telling a story about how I have been so inspired by our children. Of course, they had a great advantage. They had Elaine as a mum, which compensated for a great problem of having me as a dad. But I always felt, when I saw my kids inspire me, and they have done so many times, that wonderful Gemara in Bava Metzia, it's a famous Gemara, where Rabbi Eliezer and the rabbis are having an argument, and Rabbi Yeshua, and a voice comes down from heaven and says, "What are you got against Rabbi Eliezer? The law is like him in every place." And Rabbi Yeshua gets up and says to heaven, "Lo b'shamayim hi, the Torah is not made in heaven. God, you gave us the authority to decide who is the law like, and we're overruling you." And the Gemara wants to know. They asked Eliyahu Hanavi, "Tell me, what did God say in heaven the day his children down here on earth outvoted him? Was he angry?" And Elijah the prophet told Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, he smiled and said, "Nitzchuni banai, nitzchuni banai." My children are cleverer than I am. That is God as a Jewish parent. Friends, give your children the space to give to you. Let them become your teachers. Let them be your inspiration. And you will have inspired them to become what they truly can become. That is Rule 13, the last of the rules for the moment at any rate. Go and enjoy your children. Thank God for them. Be inspired by them. And you will help them become the people that they were destined to be and create the blessings God wants them to be. Every success.